Hello everyone, and welcome again to another Lore Thunder. Today we're looking at a history-making aircraft for the United States Air Force, the Brewster Buffalo F-2A1 and the F-2A3. Historically, it was one of the first monoplane designs to be used on aircraft carriers in the US fleet, competing with the Grumman Company's F-series of fighters for a contract from the US government and becoming the Navy's first monoplane fighter aircraft. The plane itself was exported to numerous countries like Finland, where it became one of the top scoring planes in terms of kills against the Soviets in the Winter War and Continuation War. British and Commonwealth forces used the Buffalo as well, with largely poor results, while the Dutch Air Force in the East Indies flew them in defence of their own interests in the Pacific against the Japanese, also with mixed results. The Buffalo had a modern look, featuring a stressed aluminium construction and flush riveted panels, though the control surfaces are still fabric covered. One of the interesting notes here is that this plane was the first testbed using the Langley Research Centre wind tunnel to determine areas of parasitic drag and other aerodynamic features which would yield a 10% increase in speed for the plane. Other companies took note of this and started using the same testing methods for their own aircraft. After testing and further modification, the F-2A1 could reach a top speed of 304 mph, or 489 km, at 16,000 feet, or 4,879 meters. It was armed with a single 50 caliber machine gun with 200 rounds and one 30 caliber machine gun with 600 rounds, both located in the nose section. This final design would be awarded the contract and an order for 54 aircraft being placed. However, only 11 of these would reach the US Navy, as the remainder of the order were diverted to the Finnish as part of an agreement to send urgent armaments to them to fight the Soviets. The final variant, the F-2A3, would see combat with the US Marine Corps, a total of 108 being ordered by the government in 1941, though the plane's popularity had since dropped. This was mainly due to the craft's production issues, which resulted in long delays and delayed deliveries, something which had been plaguing the company since the original model back in 1938. The F-2A3 was more of a long-range recon fighter, with more modern features such as self-sealing fuel tanks and more overall fuel capacity, something the earlier model had both lacked. More protection had been added as well, since the pilot seat originally had no armour. More ammunition and firepower was added, which also exacerbated the issues with weight and reduced the overall speed, causing issues with landing gear being an issue of failing at times, worrying for a plane intended to land on aircraft carriers. Overall, the F-2A3 was seen as a step back compared to the previous F-2A2 and even the F-2A1 in terms of speed and agility. The plane needed a new engine, but the airframe had reached its limits with regards to power threshold, and thus was considered obsolete by the time it would finally engage enemy fighters during the Battle of Midway. Speaking of which, the US Marine Corps operated around 20 F-2A3s flying with Grumman F-4F Wildcats from the USS Saratoga. The Buffalo would score its first kill for the US when one shot down a Japanese H-8K Emily flying boat near Midway Island. The later Battle of Midway would see the Buffalo Squadron intercepting Japanese D-3A1 Val dive bombers with A-6M0 escort. The dogfight was furious and resulted in 13 of the 20 Buffaloes being destroyed, though they did manage to shoot down several bombers and Zeros themselves. The aircraft was woefully outclassed by its contemporaries in the Imperial Japanese Navy. A later report to Washington would highlight the issues of the fighter, and it would eventually lead to the remaining craft being transferred to the mainland for use as advanced trainers, further being supplanted by later fighters such as the Wildcat and the later F-4U Corsair. Given the plane's early status then historically, the Buffalo in War Thunder is a Tier 1 fighter for players of the US aviation tech tree. Here the F-2A1 is a fine turn fighter against most other monoplane designs of that BR, though it should avoid turn fighting any biplanes. The best tactic is zoom and boom, flying above and striking and then once again climbing for another run. With the armor-piercing belts, the F-2A1 can even strike ground targets effectively, meaning you can contribute to your team's victory through ticket depletion if dogfighting really isn't your thing. Finally, the F-2A3 is a fine boom and zoom craft, the same as the earlier model. The big difference here is that with its increased weight it cannot turn fight enemy monoplanes. Though it does have increased firepower, it means you have to make use of the zoom and boom even more so to be more effective. However, the quad 50 caliber armor means you can quickly tear apart enemy fighter planes and bombers, provided you do get that dive in the right angle or you get onto the tail for a good burst. And that's the F-2A Buffalo. Thank you all for watching, hope you have a good week, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.